philanthropy. In the heart of this season, the season of giving for many, many families are trying to teach their children about the importance of helping others. And our next guest is here to talk more about that subject. Meg George is a philanthropy consultant and the author of the children's book, What's Philanthropy to Philomena? It follows a young girl learning the meaning of the word and how she might be able to make a difference for others. Meg George, thank you very much for joining us. I was not supposed to be working today, and then Jimmy Carter died. I came in, and because of that, I get to engage with this book, which is terrific. Kids struggle to give away toys, right? They like the idea of anything that's selfless for particularly young children is hard. This really introduces folks to that.
It does, and children are not too young to be generous. I think that's a misconception that we can't introduce things too early because they won't understand it. But we can give away money. We can also give away time and things. And when we think about giving away things, it's not just things that we're not using anymore, like shoes that don't fit us. It can be things that we really love. And I think that's something that Philomena discovers, is that even if she loves something, if someone else has none of it, she can still consider giving it away and making someone else's life better.
So you talk about the things that we as parents can teach our children about how to think of philanthropy. What are some examples of the ways that we can talk to children about that? And you say that there are 3 things that they can do to contribute. What are they?
Yeah, so with time, which I think is the best introduction to philanthropy, we can expose kids to the challenges that exist in this world. And once we do that, that leads to compassion, and it also leads to gratitude. So I always say that spending time, like making a meal, right? Everybody needs food. Nobody should live in litter. There's activities that we can do with our kids that expose them right away to making the world a better place. And they can also give away their things. So like I said, if your coats don't fit you anymore, it's a no-brainer. You should do that with your children to show them that when we can't use things anymore, someone else could benefit from it. But also things like Halloween costumes. I'll say to my son, it's not more important that we have 8 Halloween costumes and some children have 0. It's important that we have one and 7 other kids have one too. So we can show kids that even when they really like something, the idea of parting with it might be a little sad or a little weird because they have feelings that they can't help. But giving things away is also a great introduction. And then money. And it might seem a little bit unimaginable that children can be a part of giving away money, but especially today when children might have holiday money or birthday money at another time of the year, we can engage them in a group conversation with us. We as parents plan to give away a gift, a monetary donation, and we can actually involve them, which is what my husband and I do with our children.
Well, I was going to ask you about your kids. You've got a son and a daughter.
Yep.
How old are they?
They're 6 and 8.
So how did your experience with them shape what you wrote in this book?
When it was COVID and we were sitting home all of the time and I was explaining to my kids what I do, which is advising nonprofit organizations on raising more money and advising families on giving money away, that concept seemed so fascinating to my kids. And I thought, geez, over $550 billion is given away in this country every year. And we rely on actually, relatively speaking, few people to fund a lot of the things that go on at nonprofits. Yeah. So if we think about that heavy reliance we have on a small group, I say to myself, we have to change that. That's going to have to change in the future. So if we can introduce children now to becoming philanthropists, they will grow up believing that's what they are, and they'll be philanthropists as adults. So with my own kids, I'm like, let's go do things. Let's expose you to challenges and let's involve you in the conversation that we're having about money so that you can help us decide where we're going to make a donation, and you have to contribute something too.
And you say that it will also have a positive impact on their mental health.
Yes. There's so much conversation about mental health right now, and I find that it has to do often with taking things away, like screens. But what if we can add something like time as a family that's devoted to an activity, or time at the dinner table that's devoted to choosing a nonprofit that we're going to make a donation to? Or if you're not in a circumstance to do that, what if it's writing thank you notes to the people who are making investments in our libraries or in our museums, the places that we go that we love? So I think it's really important that we spend our time in that way.
It's a beautiful book.
It's a beautiful book,
It's a
yeah.
beautiful message. Making time to give, and that it feels good to give is an easy lesson for the kids to take in.
Plus time. The notion of giving time, which a Roman philosopher Seneca said, is the thing that we have the most of in our lives, and we waste it.
So true. And you know what? Our brain secretes these hormones like dopamine when we actually give back, and I feel like that makes us feel connected to others, and that feeling lasts longer.
Vlad had a $50 bet with Klaus that he couldn't mention Seneca in today's show, and he did. So, Klaus, you got to pay up. Meg George, thank you very much. What's Philanthropy to Philomena is on sale right now. It's terrific.
It's such a good book.
I work with families, so I have this very unique perspective on how nervous people are about handing their children money. And I find that so much of it is actually around, did I teach my kids enough about being philanthropic? Oh my gosh, if I give you $5 million, are my kids okay with that? Like a doctor, an accountant, an attorney, right? These are not people who are professional fundraisers. And just knowing the time right now, knowing I won't get to this slide, I'm going to jump ahead and say that if anyone is going to ask, should the board members make the solicitation when we get to it, the answer is no. What's going on in the world? I bought a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. I started reading the news every day. I learned about what was going on in other countries. I learned what an IPO meant. And then I felt like I could walk into a room and say, I read online this is the third generation of your family business. It's hard to make it to them. I saw the stats around that. How does that work? Why did your grandfather found this? You don't have to be some executive at JP Morgan to pose some of these questions, but I think our industry tends to shy away from them because we're like, they're going to say a bunch of jargon over my head. No, they just want to talk about their business. Know that I'm going to assess capacity and affinity by asking a ton of questions, and I'm also going to be prepared to talk about my nonprofit like the business that it is. I am not going to show up to a meeting without knowing how big my endowment is. And do we use that money? Is it a 4.5% kickoff that we actually use to operate our, to balance our budget? I'm going to show you a list of the things I'd want to know. And the last thing that I'm going to do is secure the next meeting in the first meeting.
You can probably tell without me saying it, but our firm is very much of the mindset that philanthropists should not spread their money a mile wide and an inch deep. We hope that if they're engaged with us in a campaign, they're making it one of their top couple philanthropic priorities. And it'd be really fantastic if families limited their giving to 2 or 3 places in any given year, because imagine the outcomes they could drive. We've all Googled our donors and seen that they've given similarly sized gifts to other places. But if that was all pooled to us during the time of a campaign, we could do so much more. And again, that's our job, as crazy as it is, to actually communicate that to people. 70% of that money has always come from individuals and families feeling the responsibility to have perfect data and perfect written pieces and appeals and communications. I think that development professionals, heads of schools, and presidents will have to start at the very top of the pyramid with gifts and kind of build a giving pyramid around that. Every building that he gives a gift to, because recognition to him is like outcomes. He thinks that person bought a car from me, now they're going to drive down the road and they're going to see my name on a library and think, oh yes, that guy gives back. This is why it's so important that we make asks more proactively and don't cultivate people towards just seeing what they'll do. We're not going to leave it in their hands because they're not sure exactly what we need and what we're thinking about them. So people work on these different teams. If you're on my orange team over here, you work in events, you work in communications, you work in the annual fund, and you don't need to be out having all these meetings with people, right? Necessarily on an individual basis. But what I would love for you to do is be able to constantly be pushing people up into the gray team. That's our major gifts team. Why are we always touching base with one another? Because the major gifts team is able to say to the orange team, hey, this is what we're hearing out there on the field. People are loving this. People aren't understanding this messaging. None of my prospects or donors right now want to come to that event. We should pivot. It's worth saying about the orange team, you're trying to get 5 different generations of available humans to give to you right now. That is just so impossible with having standard appeals and kind of standard events year in and year out. You need to be creative and juicy with your marketing and your messaging and your outreach, because to try and tackle the greatest generation and millennials and everyone else in between and thereafter, you have to do things differently, using like email differently, social media differently, written appeals differently. So the cheapest ways that you can try new things is what I encourage you to do, because at the end of the day, your job is to make sure people know what you do and the fact that you can't do it without them. So, hey, here's who we are. Like, we are the Smith Institute, and we make sure that people are fed every single day. And we cannot do it without you. We are feeding 2,000 people a month, and we're probably going to need to feed more. Join us, make an investment in us. We're doing a great job right now, but we really need you to do more, right? Your job is to do that kind of thing, and then find the 1 to 15 people who emerge as major gift prospects in response to that. The gray team is like, how am I constantly moving people up this pyramid from like giving $1,000 to exciting them about 5,000 and 10,000 and the next gift that is in line with their interests and their wealth capacity. I always offer this example on this slide, which is that if you come to me from the Smith Institute and you say, Meg, would you give me $1,000 to help feed 2,000 people a month? If I can do it, I'm going to say yes. But if you come back to me a year later and you say, Meg, great news, we did it. We're going to do it again next year. 2,000 people every single month. Would you give us $10,000? I'm going to say no. I'll stick with the 1,000. It looks like that was a great fit for what you're trying to accomplish and what excites me. You need to hook my attention and my interest to something that's far more like aspirational and bold and exciting, but still attainable. I don't want to be asked for $10,000 because you tell me that you are going to start feeding 50,000 people a month. That doesn't feel realistic to me at all. I want to know you're rooted in reality. But if you come to me with a new program that you say, I remember you saying that maternal health is so important to you. Can we have a conversation about this program? Now we're talking. So if you're on the gray team over here, you're meeting with people all of the time. You're using board members as partners, not as solicitors. You're here on this Zoom right now being trained because you're great at asking for money, or you're making an investment in yourself to be great at it. Not so that you can appoint board members to go ask all of their friends for money. Their job is to open a door that you can walk through to make an ask. Once the relationship is engaged and it feels really appropriate, you're going to make that specific proactive ask that we just talked about. And you're going to document things. Like, you might be in your office just to make sure that you have a proposal to go out and write contact reports and send more emails. And otherwise, you might not be in your office very much at all. So these major gift donors, how are they thinking? What do they care about? They want you to talk about your organization like a business, because that's what it is. I've seen this new trend on LinkedIn of people saying, can we stop acting like nonprofits are businesses? We're this and that and the other thing. We are businesses. We have to facilitate something that we promise the consumer and the investor we are going to do. And we have to have conversations about money and keep a budget and be responsible and continue to plan and vision. That's what people want. They don't want to hear all of the other more distracting words and noise.